Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to talk to you about how the narcissist, they lost their true self for the false self. So let's jump in. So the narcissist as a young child, Sam Bankman has talked about, there comes a time where the child has to make a decision. Sam Bankman is a self-aware narcissist that is happy about who he is. So he's just self-aware, but he's not anything else. But he goes over the construct. And this part of the construct, I do believe, is what occurs. I think he's telling the truth about this situation with the young child who becomes the narcissist. And he talked about how there comes a time where they are either the golden child are stressed out because they feel like they can't be perfect anymore. And then there's also the abused child who is going down a similar road from a different point of view. And they get at some point introduced to this imaginary friend that is full of energy, he said, and they convince the narcissist to give up on their true self, to not just give up on it, but to sacrifice it to this entity, to gain through this imaginary friend the false self as it enters them, and it becomes a cult with them, as the narcissist will worship this entity as a god and become a cult with them. And this thing trains them up, and it's there to protect them, to give them ways to get energies, to be their god, to make sure that they have power and control. They make this agreement, and once they make this agreement, that entity enters them and becomes the mask. Then the narcissist is full-on birth to where there's no going back. I wanted to go over this construct and this ideology, the spiritual pathology of what happens here. So what happens initially, because with all negative energy and demonic entities, they always start with oppressing you from the outside. That would be, or mean, they would start to attach themselves. They have to have doorways in, and there's different things you can do, but in most cases, it's either unforgiveness or blatant worship of something evil outside of God, and getting into performing seances and into witchcraft. And these are the ways that they get in. It has to start out as oppression, is what I'm getting at, meaning it's an attachment from the outside. What happens is everybody runs on a vibrational level. And if you could look at it like your vibrational level, if you're in the world or of the church, it doesn't matter. You can look at it like this. You can look at it, if you're in the world, you can look at it just as vibration levels. Everything has a vibration. And that vibration is putting off signals. And those signals are going to be signals of positive energy or negative energy. It's kind of like in music, you have the highs and the lows, you know, the high pitched sounds and the low bass type sounds. But in the case of this, they start to get into a state of heavy depression or, you know, unhappiness, shame. But when they start to get on a certain level of vibration level, I talked about this yesterday, there's like the first, second, and third dimension on the vibrational chart. David Hawkins, the astrophysicist, he built a chart on humanity's vibration level, and it goes from 20 to 1,000. And the narcissist can only get to a 199 because 180 is pride. They start every day out at a shame level, and they eventually can get to a pride level. That's where they get pompous and grandiose, and they can never get past that. They can never get to a point to where they can accept that they are the part of the problem, or that they need forgiveness, or they need help, or they're not perfect. And they can never get past pride. So they fall back down to shame, and their cycle becomes from 20 to 199 on the vibrational chart. And each vibrational level has increments that also give you a dimensional level. And the dimensional level separates people on lower levels, mid levels, and high levels. The dimension would be how you can elevate spiritually. What happens is they get so low, they become on a demonic level. When you get below to the third dimension or below is under 200, 199 or less. But what it takes, listen, after pride, it really takes, the next step is huge. Once you get to a 201 vibration, you can probably never become a narcissist, I mean, really. And you can be manipulated yourself. You can even be possessed yourself, but you could be delivered. But these individuals get to where they're riding under a 199 all the time. And because what it takes at a 200 is courage. And what courage tells you is you're not perfect. And you accept that. And you accept that you're all these figments of imaginations that they gas themselves up with, saying that they're a god, they're grandiose, they're God's gift to the world, and they're entitled. These types of things. See, once you get to a 200 or above on the vibrational chart, you start to enter into what they say is into the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension widens out a little bit. It's a cone, so it gets wider and it gets a little deeper. To go from the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension, you got to raise up a lot in that one dimension. But the first, second, and third are real tight and close together, tightly knit. They're 199 or less, and the cone is smaller. So there's only so much that they can do on that level. Now, when a child starts to get on that vibrational level, everybody's vibrating. Everything vibrates. That's why if you're with an evildoer, even your things will be cursed because they'll start to vibrate that way. That's why when you play evil music and you play it with water or sand around, it's going to vibrate. And if you were able to see what designs on some of these, they have these contraptions that will build a design based on the vibration of the music. It could be a sand machine or a water machine. And what it does is it'll vibrate if it's holy music and higher level music. It's going to vibrate into beautiful looking icicles and flowers, those types of things. But now when you get into those lower dimensional music, you will see that it's nothing but confusion. It all gets on to a vibration level. That's why when negative energy is around, things start breaking and all kind of stuff. You get cursed, even your things get cursed. It starts to transmute into everything. It's an infection, y'all. It's an infection that nobody's talking about. But this is what happens to the narcissist child. And because they get so low, they get these attachments from demons. And that's their first opportunity. It's almost like their first right to possession. But in the case of the narcissist, they get so low and they run so low that they are opportune for a full takeover of them. Meaning they will get the narcissist, they will oppress and suppress the narcissist from the outside. And as the narcissist is, or the young child is not a narcissist yet, they start to go down this road. They do go through fight or flight, not because they do it out of, say, just trauma. They could experience trauma in the initial, but sometimes you can do something initially and it could be honest the way it worked out. But when you start to go in and manipulate it for your own benefit, and then you start to like it and it's an evil pathway, then other things occur. Now you're not innocent anymore. And this is what a child that becomes a narcissist does. They go down this road where if they can't get something by asking for it, well, they start to realize because they can go down the road of this fight or flight in their mind and their brain, these pathways, and they can steal it or they can manipulate for it. And it's easier and the quickest way to get it. They can still get it, and that's their point. They just want what they want. And as they continue to cultivate those avenues of their brain gets repurposed. It forgets the pathways of love and peace and joy and kindness and gentleness and goodness and long suffering and good self-control, all those things, because in this young child's mind and heart, they get to a place to where they're so corrupted. Those things don't serve them and they don't care about them. Now, there could be a child somewhere else, could be in another town, another city, another part of the world. Same thing happens to them, but they don't change like this. They might run in fight or flight for a time, but they learn that as they process their emotions, this is the wrong way. This is not right for them. But this child doesn't. This child that becomes a narcissist doesn't. They are out for what they want, and they're going to get it. And they're going to get it by any means necessary. And what do they say? This Illuminati, this and in witchcraft and the Illuminati, and the narcissist says it as well. Do as thou wilt, meaning you run over whoever you want to get whatever you want, whether you deserve it or not. They don't care if they have to take people out. They don't care if they have to destroy them or crush them. And this is what they start to do. Now they got this oppression and suppression from these entities that now have a doorway to at least attach to them. So they start to talk to them. Okay. And then what happens? They start to deal with an imaginary friend. And this entity, which is not out for their good, walks them down this road because they're already walking down this road of not love and kindness or forgiveness or anything. They just start going down the road of jealousy and hatred and anger and fear to exploit others sadistically and manipulate and project. This is where there's a crossroads. And as you start to cultivate it, I don't know if y'all know, but the brain is the laziest organ system in your body. It can be rewritten, and it doesn't want to change if you let it fully rewrite itself. And once it rewrites itself, and those pathways that have been carved out now as shortcuts to use to go through fight or flight to get what they want, it puts them on a low vibration, because fight or flight puts you on a low vibration, but it's supposed to be for a time for you to get out and get away when you're in harm's way, not to just use it for abuse. You're abusing and manipulating your ways of doing things and refusing to process the repercussions that come with doing these evil things. As they start doing this with this thing from the outside, what it does to them is it starts to meet with them. It starts to say things to them. It starts to make this trap very appealing to them. And it starts to love bomb them. In the love bomb, they worship you. So they worship the child. They tell the child what they really should have and deserve to get, and that nobody's treating them right. But they're here, and they're going to be the one to show them how they need to be treated and should have been treated their whole life. They are going to get them to understand how important they are, how awesome they are, that they deserve better. And as they do that, then what happens is this child that becomes a narcissist starts to do the same thing back. They admire and adore and they worship them back, you see. And what this demon entity, this imaginary friend, is doing is it's showing this child that becomes a narcissist how they want the narcissist or this child to treat them, how they want them to treat them, to respect them, and to love and admire them and worship them. And as they do that, then this entity, it teaches the narcissist how it wants to be treated. And it gets the narcissist to trust and to love them. And it gets them to open up and be vulnerable with them. Okay, the narcissist is vulnerable with nobody. But this narcissist child becomes vulnerable to this imaginary friend because this imaginary friend is out for their good well-being. But they're already thinking evil. So what they think is good well-being is just to get what they want and to be on top, to not be abused, but to become the abuser. And they're already going down this road. And so this entity starts to teach them in its ways. It starts to love bomb them, and it shows them how they want to be treated. They get them to trust them and love them. And then they start to devalue this child. And as they devalue this child, but first, before they devalue them, they have them do several takedowns, and they instruct them how to perform the takedown so that they can destroy other little children. They can steal from other little children, get away with it. They can manipulate and get that, even though they stole it, they can blame it on the other child, and the other child will get suspended. They will crush the child for a time. Then what happens? They get to where they start to back off. They start to devalue the narcissist child, or this child becomes a narcissist. They back off and devalue them. Tell them that they're defective. Tell them that they're no good, and that they can't believe they spent time with this child and wasted any of their energy with this child. And then they leave this child, okay? But this child is now codependent to them. This child is now addicted to the things that they have been taught. It's got them in their hot and cold. So they need another hit, you see? But this thing's gone. So they start to chase this imaginary friend. They're thirsty for it. They need another hit. They want to have this power, this adrenaline, this feel of taking down or being a bully in school. Okay? To lie and to cheat, to have the charm and all these things, right? So then this entity comes back and it makes this narcissist, it love bombs them again, makes them think that and convinces them that this trap that they're getting them set up in is very appealing. Just like the narcissist did to you. They made themselves look very appealing to you. So this entity makes themselves look very appealing to the narcissist. And they can convince this narcissist to give up on their innate spirit, their true self, to sacrifice it to them for this false self that they're going to give them and create for them, to become the mask for them. And they're going to enter them and they're going to be with them forever. They're never going to be alone. They're always going to be with them to fix their codependency. They're never going to have to worry about their addiction to get this next hit, because this is going to become their instructor and it's going to be with them their whole life. And the narcissist starts to worship and love and feel vulnerable to this entity, because this entity's already data mined them when they were in the love bomb phase and learned all the information of all their thoughts, all their wants, and all their needs. And they performed them out for them. You know how they did in the fantasy for you for a time? But what happened? They devalued and discarded you, because evil can only make promises that they renegotiate later. They're false promises. So this individual does this, performs this self-sacrifice of their true self, their innate spirit, the one thing that can save them from this earth. They put it to death, and this thing enters and becomes the mask. Now, all of the fruits of the spirit are gone. Their innate spirit is gone. Their true self is gone, and their inside voice, their intuition, is gone. They're all tethered together. They get put to death. They don't leave. They get put to death. Okay? And that now turns evil. This entity gets in the seat of where the spirit man, your innate spirit man, is positioned. There's in a car, there's a driver, a passenger, and there's people in the back seat, right? Maybe. The innate spirit, which would be the driver, is now where the demon sits, this entity, this imaginary friend. And this narcissist has to worship them now. Now they've made a covenant that they can't even renegotiate. This is permanent. And this is why I call it permanent possession. And they're only loyal to this mask because they are so codependent to this imaginary friend that has taught them in each and every way that they know now. And the only thing that they've ever been vulnerable to was this imaginary friend. What does a vulnerability mean? It's to be intimate, but it doesn't have to be sexual. It's intimate to a state of close and warm understanding, a friendship or personal relationship, okay? And they become loyal to this mask. This mask brings all of their instruction. It gives them, as they follow out all this instruction for each and every takedown of every empath or supply source, they start to get better and better at it. And they start to use other people's energy and persuade others to give it to them in manipulative ways. And they get charm from this. They start to build persuasion and allure, seduction, power, control, and they get people to worship them. They play the victim. And this entity is the head in charge. This is the one ruling over this body, this avatar, this imaginary friend now. It becomes the interface. Everything goes through it. And the different types of intimacy are defined as emotional, physical, intellectual, experiential, and sexual. Well, these are things that happen with this entity. Now, hear me out. Building intimacy with a partner is to have open communication, sharing feelings, needs openly and honestly. And that's what this narcissist child does. This is the one person, this is the one thing they are sharing feelings, needs, and open honesty with. They tell this thing because they know they can trust it. And they've already told them these things in this love bomb phase. And it's creating opportunities for a connection and planning together. So they could do things together as a team. So they're getting in covenants, connecting to one another. And this thing is inside them now. So they're definitely connected and planning together. They plan, plot, and strategize against each and every source of supply to take them down, to devour them. They share feelings and needs openly and honestly so they can maneuver and make this thing happen. Then the next part of intimacy is expressing appreciation, either verbally or in actions. So how they do this is when they're convincing their sources of supply and to go down these roads of the manipulative acts that this imaginary friend has taught the narcissist and instructed them to do, as they follow it out and verbalize these things to this target. Well, in their verbalizing and their actions, they both get satisfied off their supply. They are an active listener. So the narcissist child that becomes a narcissist, they also have to be an active listener to this entity because it's instructing them. And what do you do when you get instructed? You listen. You follow orders. And listening is to pay attention to your partner's words and nonverbal cues. And they also do that to the target they're taking down on the flip side. They also have to have trust and vulnerability in building intimacy, to have safe and secure feelings without fear of it judging them. So they get to where they're convinced they can love and trust this false self. And outside, they can build intimacy, trust, and love bomb. They instruct to build this construct, becoming weak on the 9 fruits of the spirit and end up losing them because they go along with their innate spirit that they put to death. They switch into jealousy, hatred, anger, manipulation, fear, and worship of them. They are taught on how it wants to be treated. It's going to be their God. And the narcissist knows this, and they're okay with that. They're going to worship this and become a cult with it. Okay, and then it gets them addicted and gets them codependent. But it also is able to validate them. And when they validate the narcissist child that now has let this entity in, that narcissist gets a hit of dopamine. It feels so good. It isolated the narcissist and had him second guessing before all this occurred. And it discarded the narcissist for a time until it got him convinced that it had to be with them. That the narcissist was so codependent to this and in fear. And the word says, fear not, for I am with you. And that's the Lord speaking. But this narcissist child starts to get to a place to where they get in such fear that the fear in most cases is not even real before all this occurred. But in fear, they allowed this thing in, and it hoovers them back. And this is the covenant that they go into, okay? And the narcissist only likes now toxic relationships, because if you have a good relationship, then the narcissist can't abuse you. So they have to go into one-sided relationships, so they have to manipulate for that. This entity made this trap very appealing, and now they're stuck in it. They renegotiated the terms of the contract because that's what evil does. And you don't get a choice. Evil doesn't give you a choice. They're a strong-armed dictator, and you're going to follow the plan because now you're stuck. And when the narcissist meets you, what wakes you up is when that mask comes off. And if you have truth in you, you will see that veil thin. And if you are a truth seeker and you truly have it in you, then the narcissist will also see that veil thinning on your side, as they know that you know who they are. And so this is what happens. The narcissist makes this entity their God, and it becomes into an intimacy with this entity. And everything that it does to you is what happened to them. They met this thing, they were targeted, just like you were. They were love bombed until they loved and trusted, gained the trust and love of this entity, of this narcissist. Same thing happened to you with the narcissist. They data mined that narcissist child, and they got all the information. They found out all their wants and needs and how they can be best taken care of so they can perform all of their desires. They get them in their ego state as far as they can, drop them out of their spirit man so that they make emotional decisions. And they get them to show them how they want to be treated by putting them on a pedestal and love bombing the crap out of them and telling them how good they should have been treated. Well, the narcissist gets love bombed so good and so well that they feel like they have to give it back. So they start love bombing this entity back. And this entity's got them in this alluring trap because they made this trap very appealing to them. Then this narcissist gets devalued, told they're crap. This entity leaves them after a few takedowns that they performed together, and this narcissist doesn't know what to do. It's codependent to this entity, and it loves this entity. It has to have this entity, and it calls this entity back, and this entity hoovers them back and love bombs them again. And it gets them to give up on their true self, to sacrifice it to death and the 9 fruits of the spirit and their intuition, their inside voice, and their innate self. And they will give them all their heart's desires. They will lead them, be with them forever. They will never have to be codependent. The problem is once this starts to happen, this entity is not there for them. It's only using them. So the narcissist is still codependent. This narcissist now that's become a narcissist, they're not independent. They're the most codependent person in the face of the earth. They have to run around, and they're a slave to evil. Now they're not instructed. Now they're told what to do, or they will face the consequences. The narcissist gets to where they get intertwined with this thing, and they get addicted to it. They worship it, and it becomes their god. That's why there's nothing spiritual in them, and that's why there's nothing of them, of their true self. Because what they start to do ever since they're a child is they take down other children. They abuse other children, and they start to want to become them because they have traits that they like. They see them living their life, and it's awesome. They are just infatuated with how this person lives their life, this other child in school. So they take them down and steal their energy, and they become them. And so they're living in their energy, this other child's energy, and they flip the energy with this child. That's why some children at school will start to act different for a time, until they shake off this other narcissist child that switched energy with them as a young child, and shake it off and reconstruct who they are again, because they walked away from the narcissist. And they do small takedowns like this, but they actually jump from person to person and become each of these individuals because they're infatuated with them. But then they find out they can never be them. So they destroy them, and they take their energy and be the best carbon copy of them they can. And then they find somebody else that they're infatuated with. So their whole life, they start to just switch energy with people to become them as they find them infatuating. And it never ends. In fact, these cycles get, at some point through their teenage years and their high school years, these cycles start to get shorter and shorter. And they get more into their craft. They get better at it, perform better at it, and they get persuasive with it. They act better, and they have more demons that enter them and show them how to take down even better. But now they have more tools in their arsenal, and they have no remorse. So what they do is they become pathological liars, pathological cheaters. That's what this mask is. They can't do good. It's not that they don't want to anymore. They can't. They can't tell the truth. They can't be legit. They don't have a true self because they've been switching energy and being somebody else every month ever since they made this covenant. And that's the way it's always going to be, period. And if they can't find supply, then they got to sit in nothingness. It's not even their own true self or who they are. All they'll be able to be is their nothingness because they're nothing, because they sacrificed it already, but they still have the demon in there. And that's all they will see. And that's why it crushes them. because that is pure evil, y'all. They don't want to see that. So they chase because they want to avoid seeing just them sitting alone with a demon for what it is. And that's the true reality of it. That's why they come to you. They're jealous of you. Their hatred is building, and they have anger and fear and manipulate you and project onto you and gaslight. They form cohesive control and isolate and get you fawning in your anxiety and your fear. They become grandiose and entitled, compete with you. They want your praise and your worship and your admiration and adoration. And in that fear and anxiety, it causes paranoia and doubting and second guessing. They become sadistic and they enjoy it. They're malignant with it and causes autoimmunes to occur in your body and makes you sick. They perform curses on you as they are the embodiment of witches and warlocks. And as they curse you, they also give you backhands and dog whistling. They make you malleable, and they come to steal, kill, and to destroy. And if you want to heal from this, people always want to ask, how do you get off this energy? It's a process, y'all. And you know, at some point in time, this individual is not right for you. It's not good for you, but you still have this addiction to them. You still have this draw to them. And you're going through what your spirit man is telling you need to do. You need to walk away. And so you walk away and start thinking with your mind, your brain, and not your heart. But your heart, for many months, many weeks and days, is going to be yearning, and your endocrine system for that individual. Even though your brain is taken over and it's telling you what you need to do, until you believe in what you know, are you completely detached? You have to believe it, and that's a process. It's a process of detachment. It was a process of you getting hooked and latched onto the narcissist, and you ran into it. And it's a slow process getting out. But the quicker you can detach is the quicker that you believe it, you feel it, and you know it, and you don't want them at all. And you're not just saying it, you believe it. Then you're cut. All the cords are cut, and you're done. So if you can give me a like, subscription, and thumbs up. Till next time, stand tall, soldier up. Peace out. Love y'all.